Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, Sarah.
You know, Anatole France said that intelligent women always marry fools.
Oh, really?
And here's the thing. It's if I say that I'm intelligent, then that means Peter's a fool. So
that's funny. Now this is.
I was thinking about Michelle.
This is no slight to your intelligence, but I don't think Peter's a fool.
No, he's not. So I have to find a different quote. Because I was sitting here jamming out some ideas about Michelle and how she was probably just trying to reach out to the single women out there, and then the faux pas was, oops, I stepped into my own quicksand.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that there is I think Michelle's wearing a beard. That's what I think. I think that my theory, it's not even my theory, it's a widely held theory, that our president is, likes to switch head. And probably more often from the left side of the plate than not. And Michelle is there really for the ride. And I don't think it's really any different than Bush. So I'm not doing any, partisan innuendo. I think, Bush had 12 or 13 unregistered visits with Jeff Gannon. AKA Johnny Gosh. So I don't think that there's anything new happening in the White House. I just think that we're dealing with a very challenged perception on some level about who people are and what their sexual preference is. And the reason I think that that's the case is obviously there's votes to be had, although that's probably changing. It probably doesn't matter anyway. But there's also this aspect of security and bribes and extortion and all that stuff, which theoretically should be a big deal. I mean, it happened in the Clinton administration. Once they got the goods on him and put him up to in front of the grand jury, and he lied and all that stuff. Then he perjured himself. Then he was their boy. And right after that, the United States got into Kosovo and the Balkans and started bombing the shit out of the place. So, and then sanctions with Iran. So once they had him literally over Iraq, then he would do whatever they wanted him to do. And so this is why I think it's kind of a big deal. And if he's truly transparent, well, let's just get really transparent about the whole thing. That's my 2 cents.
Well, there are times when you do have to choose between being human and having good taste.
I guess. I guess. Well, it's interesting too. I mean, if you bring those two together, his supposed love interest is Reggie Love, who is also his personal chef. So I guess something that tastes good and being human can all be in one package.
Well, there you go. There you go.
All right.
Well, tell me about this 6 degrees of separation between Jay and I, because that kind of, I went, hey, now there's something to talk about. I mean, I got a million things to talk about, but tell me about that.
Well, also, I mean, just really quickly, you brought up that thing about fools at the beginning of the show, right?
Yeah.
An intelligent woman marries a fool. Well, I just put up a post, I mean, literally like 2 minutes before we get on the air, and the post is about tyrants, dictators, and fools. So, maybe it's a theme for the show here. You never know. But the 6 degrees of separation between you. Well, you're doing George Norrie's show. What, next week?
Yeah.
On Gaiam, right?
Right.
And Jay, I believe, is producing that show.
Really?
Really.
Well, that's phenomenal.
I think Jay is producing most of these. I think Gaiam has their own version of like TED Talks. I mean, it's these video interviews with leading edge thinkers and writers and authors and artists and all that stuff.
Well, to me, it's sort of like TED Talks for the spiritually inclined.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. But that's not to say that there aren't things in the TED Talks that aren't spiritual, although they did ban Graham Hancock, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that was, their idealism is fine, But when it begins to approach reality, the cost becomes prohibitive.
Well, when you start talking about the war on consciousness, which is what he was talking about, the TED people were like, no. We have to keep it. We have to keep it light, right? We can't really go into this, ancient struggle between light and dark on this planet. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, and there's some hypocrisy there. There's some hypocrisy there, and that's why I'm all about balance. People ask me, and recently, I call myself the cosmic hooker. And, the funny thing is that my skin is getting thicker and thicker and thicker the more I put myself out there, and I'm going to have to because, I was telling somebody the other day that I'm a B-side celebrity because, I'm too hot to touch, and yet you got to touch me because everything I say and everything I talk about is truth. And the truth will piss you off, but eventually you're going to have to look at it and say, okay, yeah, that's what's really going on. That's what's really happening. It's like it's Korea. You can ignore it for as long as you want, but there's a big giant cosmic hooker staring at you in the face.
Well, I've been thinking about the name cosmic hooker for you. And
I love it.
I know you do. I'm not a fan. I'm just going to be honest.
I know.
I'm not a fan. I would say, really, at some point, maybe you would consider an upgrade and be the cosmic madam instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's about understanding the light and the dark. It is understanding duality. It is about balance. And here's the thing: is for years and years and years, I was ashamed of my past, and now not so much because I know that some of the things that I did and the reasons that I did them, they healed me. And I never want to be a madam because I certainly don't want to pimp out other people.
Uh-huh.
So,
you can pimp me out anytime you want. You're fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll just throw you on my website. But then again, there's the spin. So if I'm gonna walk my talk, then maybe I'm gonna have to become a cosmic madam. I mean, that seems to be the natural course of it, right?
So let's just inform people here, fill them in. You were actually a paid escort, right? I mean, that's what you did for a living.
I did, yes. When I was 19, 20, yes.
All right. Can you tell us any really interesting, weird stuff from that time, like a story that would be appropriate for this show and maybe what you learned from it?
No, not appropriate
really?
For this show.
Hey, let's play a little guessing game. Or did you ever do your thing for somebody famous?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how famous? 10 being super famous.
10.
Okay. Politics or show business?
Show business.
Movie?
Well, no, actually a little bit of both now. So.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, there's some bleed over in there. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Are his initials WB?
What do you make? Why are you presuming it's a he?
Oh, well, I don't know, because that's my orientation.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Am I wrong in presuming it was a he?
I can't tell you that. These people know me. They know me. And that's all I'm going to say. And I know, every once in a while I wonder if I'm going to get assassinated because I'm like, oh my God, is she ever going to say anything? And I'm going to say publicly now, no, never. It'll never happen. Not in a book. And there will be no changing names to protect the guilty either.
Well, as long as you don't have a client list, you'll be fine.
I don't. Okay. I absolutely don't.
So it's your work against somebody else's. And look what happened with what's her name, Kathy O'Brien. I mean, she wrote probably the most intense, strange, bizarre tell-all of all time, and she's still around.
Yeah, and it wasn't believable though.
Oh, I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. Well, and only because there are certain things that I know about her story from the inside that are pretty real. From
like
my
what?
What's that?
Like what? Because everybody's going, okay, Robert, what?
Okay, well, not from my own personal experience, mind you, but one of the things that she talks about is the size of Dick Cheney's member, and that it's gargantuan. And there's a picture, and there's a picture on the web. And I actually found it on, do you know who Dave McGowan is?
Oh, yeah.
I found it on Dave McGowan's site. And Dave McGowan posted it. And he made the connection between Kathy O'Brien and the picture. And trust me, it does not leave a lot to imagination.
Wow.
So how would Kathy O'Brien actually know about that? It's kind of like, I don't know, it's the Michael Jackson smoking gun.
Okay.
So that, I mean,
right.
There's that level. And the other thing, too, is that she talks about some stuff with sports. And that's kind of my inside world. And one of the things that she mentioned, she mentions Nolan Ryan in the book, and how Nolan Ryan was kind of a part of this world where the sports guys had access to the same codes that the politicians and the musicians did, and Nolan Ryan wound up becoming the owner of the Texas Rangers without hardly any capital at all. He became a banker without hardly any capital at all. Nolan Ryan happens to be a Mason. So all these things begin to kind of line up around Nolan Ryan. She talks about Lee Greenwood in the book. God bless the USA. What do you see on YouTube? You see Lee Greenwood at a Sarah Palin event with Linda Rothschild on stage singing God Bless the USA, with Sarah Palin flashing Illuminati signs with her hands all in the same frame set. And there's Lee Greenwood, who shows up in her book as well. And then she talks about Chris Christopherson, same thing, same deal, same access codes. And, where do you see Chris Christopherson? You see him on a talk show in England with Sinead O'Connor. Sinead O'Connor has all of the earmarks of an MK Ultra.
Oh, absolutely. I would
So
say, yeah.
What's Chris Christopherson doing in that moment? He's her handler. He's doing his thing. So, I begin to piece all this stuff together. And if Kathy O'Brien had been lying, then I think that there would have been legal action taken against her and that she would have been shut up. So my theory is that she's telling the truth. Okay, so...
well, now, and that's not to say that everybody who has legal action coming after them or who has been prosecuted in a court of law or something happens, it doesn't mean that that's true, though, Robert.
No, I understand that. But I'm putting together a lot of evidence outside of, she's naming names and amassing all of these pieces, right? And so what I've done is I've independently collected evidence around a lot of the players that she talks about and see them showing up over and over again in a similar light, in a similar way, in a similar fashion, without coming right out and corroborating what she's talking about, obviously, but they're at the scene of the crime. So,
yeah, but a lot of this stuff just gets so buried. I mean, a lot of people are now writing down names and are going to begin purchasing books simply because we had this conversation. A lot of people don't even know who we're talking about and why.
Yeah, okay, well...
Or not why we're talking about them, but, what led up to all of this stuff and putting together the puzzle pieces. I mean, and then you've got certain people out there, like that woman who claims to have had Carlos Santana's son, and, she talk about MK Ultra. She was, Eric Clapton's lover. And
right.
Carlos Santana's. I mean, she's got some really interesting stuff out there, and I think Oh, man, I mean, somebody put her brain in a blender, because some of that stuff sounds really true based on what I know about certain people.
Isn't that Michael Lee Hill's mother?
I don't recall.
I think it might be. You know Michael Lee Hill is, right?
No, I don't. That name.
Michael's been on the show before. He's been on Project Camelot. Michael's a really, really nice guy, very sweet guy, and he, through a strange series of circumstances, has been shown that he's like this Anunnaki prince, that he might actually be the reincarnation of Enki, okay, or of Enki, and his father, according to Michael, is Eric Clapton.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, Michael's an amazing guitar player, so if that stuff is passed down, I think who you're referring to might be Michael's birth mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was reading really interesting stuff about that, because Roseanne Barr is she's very vocal about MK Ultra, and a lot of people who would have poo-pooed that in the past are now sitting up to listen to that, because she's had experience with people who have been infiltrated by that program.
Right.
And people are beginning to understand that this stuff exists. It's everywhere. It's in the public school system. Can you hear me? There was.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's in the public school system, and I personally have counseled a couple of people who have come to me because, well, let's face it, I don't judge. I listen to everything that everybody says, and I sit inside their energy, and if I feel truth and I can validate it, then by God, we're going to go ahead and do that. And I know that a couple of my clients have suffered terribly as the result of this kind of torture and mind control and their bizarre rituals. It's all sacred alchemy. I mean, if you really want to just like the simplest answer is the most correct. They do these rituals because of sacred alchemy, because it's a way to move energy and make it happen, and it puts people against free will.
Right.
And that's why I don't like witchcraft.
I would not really call it sacred alchemy. I would call it a profane alchemy.
Well, it is profane alchemy. Okay, sure. If you want to call it the force, whoever holds the force, it's like a Bible. If you can throw a Bible at somebody or you can read it. I mean, it's how you spin it.
Yeah, this is. I mean, it's all Babylonian sex magic, but with an interesting new twist in that you create the subpersonality as a result, and then the subpersonality can become the altar, and then the altar can do different things, and you could turn it on and off via code. And this is what we're talking about. Kathy O'Brien kind of wrote the book on this, and at the same time there was Arizona Wilder, and then you had Cisco Wheeler, and so there was a whole slew of people, women, coming out right around the same time, which is interesting to think about because maybe they were all inducted right around the same time too. So that's kind of interesting just from a chronological perspective. But all those stories came out right around the late 90s and early 2000s, which would have made those women probably in their late 30s, early 40s, and sort of living past their expiration dates, and then working through a lot of their altered personalities, not past lives, but altered personalities and all that stuff. So it's interesting.
Well, and not only that, it's interesting that you would call it past their expiration date, because that's very, very true. Yeah. What happens is that you can only bind someone for so long.
That's right.
And then you've got two choices. You let them go, and like I said, their brains are in blenders, or choices have consequences, and that's why when you begin messing with someone's free will, when you begin binding them with whatever kind of energy magic or whatever, because it does exist. That's just it. You can't poo-poo that stuff away. These rituals work. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine, a very good new friend of mine, Michael Roberts, who is very, very knowledgeable about certain kinds of information with regard to truth. And we were talking about how people, when they're possessed by demons, when people are possessed by demons, okay, every time I say that word, it gets fuzzy.
Yeah.
They'll, they go to different people, and it seems like the only ritual that will help them is performed by a Catholic priest.
Mm.
And that signifies something. That signifies that there's authority and power there for some reason that other people can't tap into. And that doesn't mean that the Catholic Church is right and true and the only true religion. No, it just means that they've got the handle on that kind of power. It
Mm-hmm.
exists. It's real.
It's really funny. I was looking yesterday while I was putting together these horoscopes. I was moved to look up Linda Blair. And I just wanted to see what Linda Blair, what her sign was and what she was up to. And she's an Aquarius, which I didn't really know. And I was just looking at her image today, and how that film must have impacted her and what was really going on during that movie. Was she really truly possessed during that time? I mean, all those thoughts were taking place, and I didn't really come to any conclusion, but she did not look all that healthy. Let's put it that way.
One of the things that I'm very impressed to say at this moment as I consider our conversation over the last half hour is that one thing I want to make perfectly clear, and I do know this from personal experience, is that the Illuminati, this so-called Illuminati, this cabal of wicked, evil, New World Order type, for every light there is a dark, and for every dark there is a light. So we have to remember that there are people out there who are in the quote-unquote Illuminati, because Illuminati just means illuminated, all right, who are working towards truth, okay? So there's another war going on that nobody talks about, that is all these politics and everything that we see on the surface. There's a lot more going on underneath all of that.
Yeah.
And we cannot simply sit back and say, okay, it's all evil. No. I know personally people, very powerful people, who are working towards exposing a lot of this. And so, there's a war in movies. There's a war in media. And that's why we have to really put our finger on the disinformation jockeys, because there's what do they call them, double agents? There's so much of that out there that it's really hard to decipher what is and what isn't, and which is why it's so important to have people like you who are just, hey, this is it. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. It could happen. But you have an opinion. You have an educated opinion. And it's intuitive and it's smart. So keep going. I honor you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And let's talk about you now. What are you doing with George next week?
I'm the co-founder of the White Light Express, and we're the good guys in the Illuminati. Okay.
Okay.
We are the White Light Express is about promoting a group consciousness of light and truth and healing. I've been doing it for 11 years now, and it's my. Here's the thing. I don't want it to become my platform for the quote-unquote cosmic hooker, because that's not what the White Light Express is about. And I've had a lot of people say, you need to make this your banner. I don't want it to be. The White Light Express has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with people who are seeking healing, and who are seeking healing through tapping into a God consciousness. And it's about miracles, and it's about growing faith and hope, and moving energy in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe in that. I've seen it work. I've seen it change lives. I've seen that we need to. Who was it? Ken Keyes that talked about the 100th monkey. Yeah,
it was Ken Keyes. It was also the English character. Oh my God, my brain is slipping. But yeah, Ken Keyes definitely talks about it.
Okay, so I have believed all of my life that if you just get enough people, that mass consciousness to push forward, and this is what the good Illuminati are doing. Okay?
Rupert Sheldrake, by the way, Rupert Sheldrake.
Yes, yes. If we can push enough people, and not like lemmings over a cliff, okay? Whoever thought that just now, stop it. If we can push enough people towards the light, it's the 100th monkey. We're going to start doing the right thing because it's what we're supposed to do, as opposed to the self-serving, greedy, capitalistic, consumerist process that's happening. We're going to start doing the right thing.
Right. Well, I would agree. I mean, I think that the process you're talking about is entanglement, and in a positive sense. And it's interesting that you have been doing this for going on 11 years now. And what's fascinating for me is I have this chat room that we activate during this show. And just in the last couple of months, the chat room has become like this crucible. And there are miracles taking place in that chat room. Like right now, as we speak, they're taking place, and it's growing exponentially. So there's possibility for this to take place in a lot of different ways and shapes and forms. And it feels like you were, kind of on it, for a while now. So I'm just giving you some feedback that it works, and that it has a life of its own, and that this is exactly what is taking place.
And it's my job to push that forward because I'm very strong with that. There have been points in my life where the darkness became so dark that it was a little speck of light that illuminated my world and pulled me into a realm of truth and growth and things that are positive and will promote a higher consciousness and give people hope. This is it, man. The White Light Express is there to tell people they are not alone. You are not alone. Out there somewhere, somebody is reaching out for you because they also need help and they feel terrified and lonely.
Right.
And they don't have any place else to turn, and they don't know where to turn. So it is that I think Robert Anton Wilson talked about the tapping into the universal consciousness, that there was an interstellar ESP channel that we could all reach out to. And you don't have to be religious. You don't even have to believe in a God. I mean, EMFs are there, whether God is or isn't. It's just an energy thing.
Right, right. So how does this work? It's going to be on George's show. It won't be live. They'll be taping it, right?
Right. They will be taping it. And what we're going to do is we're really going to get in to the deepest foundation of what the White Light Express is about, how it works, why it works. We're going to talk about healing grids. We're going to talk about the people behind it, myself, my sister, the people that have stepped up recently to facilitate this and how we want it to grow. And here's the thing that I was talking to Tom Danheiser, George's producer. I said, listen, here's the thing. We have a prayer request line, and I've spent thousands and thousands of my own dollars on this, and that's okay. I don't mind. This is my church, but it isn't my church where I get to wave my banner and say, oh, hey, I'm the minister. We're all ministers in this church. We are all. None of this could happen if people didn't become involved. And even if it's just 6 days a month, even if it's just 7 days a month, we are connected for a higher and greater good, and it's all about healing. These other places, we're talking about what's so different about the White Light Express as opposed to these other places. Here's the bottom line: we don't have an agenda. There's no agenda. There's no money making. There's no books. There's no. This isn't my platform or Avis's platform or Michael's platform or Robert's platform. This is for everybody. This is not going to become And even our conferences, every year I've had people call me and say, well, what about vendor booths? What about this? What about that? Well, that's fine. There are venues for that. The Universal Lightworkers Conference, there's all different things. I don't want this to become somebody's money-making scheme. That's not what it's about. It's about spreading light, spreading love, spreading knowledge, and being with like-minded people in a tribe of believers in hope.
So after this is taped, how long will it take for it to air on Gaiam? Do you know?
I think a couple of weeks. I think it's going to be a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks. Okay. So if anybody wants to find out more about the Gaiam TV, there's a link on the show page, and I also have a link to your website on the show page as well. So there's plenty of.
And if they go to Gaiam right now, to the best of my knowledge, they can get a 1-month free membership. Mm-hmm. They should jump on that. That's it. And you know what? For $9 a month, come on. It's like, don't get a couple of cups of coffee. Get Gaiam. When you're sitting back going, married with children. No, Gaiam. Enlighten yourselves, people. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Well, good. All right. Well, listen. Let's have you. Well, we'll see you again in a month, and then we'll find out how that taping went, and we'll catch up from there. How does that sound?
That sounds awesome. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, Sarah. Always appreciate it, and take good care of yourself, and I mean that from top to bottom.
Thank you. I've been getting healthier. It's good news. It's
good.
Really good news.
Glad to hear that.
All right. Talk to you soon. Love you, brother.
Okay. Love you too. That's Sarah Nash, the Cosmic Cooker. She's here with us every Friday for a half an hour. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discover what's possible. This is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to Friday Firecast. Thank you, Jay Widener. Thank you, Sarah Nash. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu. Perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words, I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And I will even say this, such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.